Welcome into Shaping Reality for March 2025. I'm Kimberly with Journey to the New Earth, and tonight I'm joined by educator and consciousness expert Penny
Oh,
Kelly. Welcome in, Penny. How are you tonight?
oh, good. I was going to say a little frizzled, but you can probably tell by looking at me. But it has been a wonderful day. Because
It's been a day in Penny's world.
yeah, it has. There are days that go by and nothing gets done. There's just one interruption after the next. And last week, I had the very wonderful news that my boiler had developed a crack, and that's like a $10,000 thing. And I was like, oh, okay, what else? And I should never have said that because a few more
Oh,
things happened. But
because you invited it in.
no. So today, it's been very productive. And I love those kinds of days. If you just go to a job and you come home, some days you come home thinking, I really got a lot done. Other days you come home and you wonder, what was I doing all day? And so today is one of those, I got a lot done and I'm not done yet. So,
Yeah, it's still
yeah.
going on. Well, hang on, everyone, because we're going to have a longer show tonight because we have so much to talk about. I mean, there's just a lot going on, let's face it. But
Yeah.
Penny, before we launch into some of the topics that I think were raised by this month's Look See, can you reiterate again? Because I think it cannot be said enough, because a lot of people are not catching on
Yeah.
that we are in the throes of a takeover plan. So take it from there and kind of give us the cliff notes, and then let's start talking about how that fleshes out as far as nation states and how we organize ourselves as a collective.
Okay. So let's just kind of big picture it for a moment. There has been ongoing for a long time, couple thousand years at least, a plan to take over the planet. That plan, this is, I think, their third or fourth try on this. They have lost each time and they retreat for a long period. Excuse me. I have a frog that keeps trying to come up here. And so the takeover almost always proceeds in the same way. And I talked in a little more detail about this elsewhere, but I'll give you the highlights. It starts with ETs who do not have good intentions, who want the control of the planet. And they start clearing so they can bring their own people in. And they do that in a slow, really slow, kind of sneaky way. It starts typically with some kind of disruption in an isolated village somewhere, and they cause some trauma to some families in a small village, and the children in that village are the ones most traumatized. And so then the ETs kind of watch over those children and they help them and they boost their efforts, and the children they tend to help the children when the children are being unfair or abusive to others, and they grow up to be distorted, unfair, abusive adults who then look for other people like themselves and help create other people like themselves. Their children inherit that, and so that's how it starts. And then it grows. And it takes a good, I'm going to say 500 years at least for enough people to have accumulated to be able to start working with that population directly. So then they introduce religion. And that brings about mental and emotional and spiritual conformity. But there's no physical conformity until they introduce the corporation, and they can't introduce a corporation until there's a good number of people all around the planet who are not nice. They are dishonest. Sometimes they're murderous. Sometimes they're willing to be thieves. They basically don't care who they hurt. So then the corporation is the favored tool. Sorry for all of us who have corporations. The corporation is a way of creating physical conformity. It starts by connecting people to jobs, and that disconnects them from Mother Nature. So you have this growing disconnection. When that disconnection is complete, now you have complete physical conformity because nobody knows how to survive without all the creature comforts and the money that they use to buy the things they need. They don't know where their water is coming from. They don't know what's been done to it. They don't know where their food is coming from or what's been done to it. And the rest is right where we're at right now. And there was a plan to create a war. It was Hillary's 16-year plan, or Obama's. They were both involved. And that was going to take out a huge percent of the population. It didn't work out the way they wanted. Along comes, this off-the-wall guy named Donald Trump, and he started interfering in the plan. And there's not much talk about this, but this comes from old information that I had back in 2012. There's a plan. Somebody concocted a plan that would allow whoever was willing to do this plan to get rid of the corruption, get rid of the people, do it all legally, so that there wouldn't be any like a backlash. Say, when somebody comes in and just takes over, there's always going to be a big group of people who say, well, he didn't do that legitimately. He just busted in and took over. So everything has had to be by the book. And that plan was thick. It was like 1,400 pages. It was a lot. And the people who read it said, I think this will work. And so they started working the plan, and we're now where we have a chance, and it's a small window. It is a small window. The next 2 or 3 years, when you're talking about a multi-thousand-year plan to take over, and you get 2 or 3 years to reverse that, or to begin to reverse that, that's a very small window. And there's a lot of questions that I've had about Trump, and yet, they keep getting answered little by little. He does things that I think that could be taken a different way, and it could, and we'll have to see what does the long term produce. But right now, that's the only person standing up saying, hey, we need to make America, that's his slogan, make America great again. What he's really saying is we need to take back control of our planet. Once in a while, he does say that.
Yeah.
And once in a while, he does say, if you only knew how big this was.
Yeah. And I've heard him, I've caught him, saying little things that have so much more power than you would realize. I have 2 comments I'd like to make, Penny, regarding this.
Okay.
I just read a book, and forgive me, everyone, I don't remember either the title or the author. Of course not, but I read the book in one day, just about one day. And it was written by a gentleman who was a survivor of satanic ritual abuse and had been involved in the, that whole satanic culture all his life. It started when he was quite young.
Oh, wow.
And the book was exceptional, and I'm going to apologize, you guys. I promise I will put it in the description box or in the comments below my video when I'm done with this. But he laid out so very clearly this takeover plan. And one of the things that he said that I thought really reminded me of what I've heard from you over the years is that they particularly target CEOs of corporations.
Yeah.
And they target them for very, very awful things,
Yeah.
to be involved in very awful, think of the most awful thing, and they get them involved in that, and they either video it or have evidence of it. And the reason they do that is not only to blackmail that CEO, so now they have control of him or her, but to harden them to humanity. So that once they've done these certain things, they know they can no longer engage in their humanity or their compassion. And so they don't have compassion for the people's lives they're destroying with the decisions their corporation is now going to undertake. And I thought, you know what? That makes perfect sense.
Mhm. Yeah, it does. And if you've heard some of the conversations, I forget the name of the guy who was the banker in Europe who was made it way up to the top of some kind of currency trading, whatever.
Yeah, I saw him interviewed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then got to the last step, which was he had to, I think, rape and murder a child. And he said, no, I can't do that. And he started to cry a couple times. And he's still out there trying to tell people, hey, wake up. This is how they get people. One of the friends that I had was Robert David Steele. I don't know why I made a big impression on him right from the start, but he, I mean, he was just very open with me. And he said, this is why we can't have, or let me say it this way, because I like the way he said this better. He said, we have to have truth and reconciliation. There isn't going to be enough legal time to prosecute or enough jails to hold all the people that are involved in some very awful stuff. We need the truth to come out. We need reconciliation. We need to begin forgiving. And I remember thinking, I don't know if I could forgive that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do that. I'm not a vindictive person at all, but there's a part of me that says, some people need to pay for what they have done. They need an honest response.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that truth and reconciliation is an honest response for everybody. It could be for a lot of people who got caught just being human. But the people that have then pursued it and developed it and become worse, there's there's such a thing as being treated in kind. And I'm like, oh, wow. So
Yeah.
I don't know how I'll respond if we get to that. But, but we have a lot of pushback happening now. We have this window of opportunity. My own attitude is, let's go for it. Why would we do anything else?
Yeah. Well, I think that, as things have degraded in our society,
Mhm.
and we've lost our rights, and we've lost the beauty, and we've lost the sense of community, and just there's so much difference. And I think those of us who are older we're more clearly able to see it because we know what things used to look like. And that brings up something you had brought up, kind of, that we talked about before we came on last month, and that's the gullibility of humans. And I would add on to that almost a permanent adolescence.
Yeah.
So can we are allowing it, and I see it in my community. I kind of live in the absolute epicenter of bread and circuses.
Yeah. Okay.
Which
Quite a
is
picture.
how I see it.
Uh-huh.
And it's almost as though, let me be honest. I've had a couple of girlfriends who say, I don't want to look at that. I just want to go have lunch and play golf and have fun and ride my bike.
Yeah.
And that's okay if there's not business to take care of or things to take care of.
I
But
know.
unfortunately, we've got a whole lot to take care of, and we can't just decide that I want to go be frivolous and not look at the world around me. So can you talk a little bit about how how do you see the gullibility and the permanent, what I call permanent adolescence?
I think that that gullibility is based in the natural goodness
Yeah.
of human hearts. People are programmed to love, to cooperate. They're made of love. You don't really experience that until you have a full. Well, Kundalini is one way to enter into that state where you become the love of the Godhead. But you can fall in love. You can fall passionately, madly, crazily in love with somebody, and you will have a taste of that unconditional love. And so that's part of what's natural for us. Cooperation is part of what's natural. The ability to respond instantly before we have a chance to think about it is another thing that you have to watch for that makes us gullible. We've already taken it in, felt it, integrated a whole lot of it before we even, 2 minutes goes by. And so that's a problem. And then there's the immaturity problem. The People often don't want to hear the bad news. They just want the good news. If they have bad news, it's usually going to be about their life. It's a complaint about their life. But that whole thing, that gullibility, we have to mature, which means we have to look behind the curtains. We have to look under the rock. We have to get to a place where we see what, and I remember the first time I ran into this. I had my best girlfriend, who's no longer with us. We might have been in our mid-20s. She might have been 29. I was 24, something like that, 25 maybe. But she was going to college, and I wanted to go to college. It was my dream. And she was always talking about international relationships. And I was like, how do you know all that? And she said, I read. And so one day I came across this article in the Detroit Free Press or Detroit News, and I cut it out and I said to her, Sharon, look at this. This is this and this is that. And she read it. It was short. And she immediately said, who wrote this? What's his agenda? Where's he from? Where does he work? What is he trying to make happen? She had more questions than a college professor. And I was just like, oh, one of those mouth on the floor kinds of moments where you just realize that here's somebody demonstrating how
Critical
to.
thinking.
Yeah. And here's me, gullible me, mouth open, totally uneducated, thinking I found something that might impress her. And she tore that article apart in a hot second. And I was blown away. And that just doubled my, determination to go to school. I said to her a couple of days later, I want to learn to think like that.
Yeah.
And it took a while. But by the time I was in my fourth year of college, I was questioning everything. Mm-hmm. Who said, why? What are they trying to achieve? Everything. Where's the financial benefit? What's the return? What does he get from that? What does she get from that? And so on. Yeah. That is not the level of thinking that Americans have adopted. And maybe we're getting there now, but it's been a hard set of lessons.
I think more people are. And I want to get back to the innate compassion of humans.
Yes.
But the thing that I've been thinking about so much is that innate compassion, we love, we care. I can watch those videos of people rescuing dogs all day long. I can go down there. I can, it's like, and I'm just bleeding compassion. But our compassion has been weaponized against us.
Right. It has.
We fall for and I'm saying this in general, people, we fall for every single hook, line, and sinker.
That's right.
Compassion. And I think that's how, so much has been built to take us down so easily because we're kind of suckers in a way. And
We
yeah, I brought up that saying earlier, it's credited to Jesus. We don't know. But the saying is, be as harmless as a dove and as wise as a snake.
are.
And I think that that second part is what we need to work on.
And what is the snake the symbol of? I mean, if you're not Christian, even if you are Christian, you need to know that the snake was not the great Satan. It was the symbol of the frequency, because as the snake moves, it looks like the frequency wave that everything is made of. And the old ones, the ancient people knew that. And everything was related to the power that made the world what it was. And they very accurately figured out, this animal is akin to that energy, and this bird is akin to that, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, we need to have that kind of the spirit of that dove that really is set free, but that means free to see, free to hear, free to feel what's hiding in the background, free to understand when you're being emotionally manipulated to feel, oh, that's too bad. And I've seen a few pieces recently as Trump was taking apart different departments. And, people are losing jobs left and right. And, what was it? The weather. NOAA, the national.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They took some people away from that, or some money away from that. And they were like, oh, people are going to die in tornadoes and hurricanes. And I'm like, hurricanes in North Dakota? I don't know. That, he didn't take away everything. He just took away some of the stuff way up along the Canadian and the northern tier of the US. And so it's like, oh, wow, that piece is designed to rile people up. And I wonder how many are realizing they're being riled up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think they are. They fall for it. And then they protest, and then they waste energy. And that wasted energy goes all in some direction it should not go in.
Yeah. And that's an issue for me, is I will see a large group of people focusing their energy on something that I think, oh man, if they could just take that energy and focus it on the truth and dismantling what's going on, not only in this country, but around the world, we could come out of this so much more quickly.
I know. And we haven't. Hang on one second. There we go. We haven't. Well, let me say this. I think I mentioned this in the look-see. As I keep on putting out my feelers to see how are people doing, are they okay? And the people that are getting dumped out of their swamp jobs are really, I'm sure they're suffering. They're probably worrying. They're probably losing sleep or whatever. And I feel for them. It's like, oh, wow. Yeah, I've been in those kinds of situations. It's not fun. But the huge majority of people across the belly of the US and even down into the South, even quite a few people in California, they're hardening in a way that is really wonderful to see. And I think I framed it as, what I see is that people are in a place where, how did I say it? They're going to make some decisions, and they're not going to go back.
Yeah.
They are committed to the future. They don't know what that future is, but there's this hardening, a maturing really is what it is, that says, I'm done with that circus.
Yeah.
And that is both heartwarming and a little bit frightening to see that. It's like, okay, we're in for the ride once people decide that's it. I'm not going back.
Yeah.
So,
I
yeah.
look at it as short-term pain, long-term gain.
Oh, yeah.
And, I'll describe what my thoughts are on that. When you're, and I'm just using an example, let's say you've got a government job and maybe it didn't have a lot of impact and you were doing something that wasn't that fulfilling and you wanted to stay there to get the retirement. And it was kind of like, these, golden handcuffs in a way, not
Oh,
very enriching. Short-term pain, you're now dumped out of your job. I had a friend that called it, head in the trough, where you got a government job and you were there for the, remainder.
right.
Now there's an opportunity to build something that will make a difference. Maybe it's a service job or a skilled job, or you build a small little local business that supports your community in some way. I look at that as like, wow, okay, you've lost what you thought was a lifetime position, but was it really fulfilling? What was it? How was it enhancing your life? How was it enhancing the community? Maybe it was paying your mortgage, but, and now you have the opportunity to do something you really love
Right.
and build something that matters not only to you, but to the people who are going to use
Mm,
your services or your product.
yeah. You know, I was looking at some of the statistics for job growth over the last year or so. And every month there would be, so many hundreds of thousands of new jobs created.
Yeah,
And
right.
then it turns out that most of those, almost all of those new jobs created, were government administrative positions opened up just for people who, could apply, could fit in. And so it was really the government. That's why I said in the look-see, was the government, did they buy you off by offering you a fat paycheck? And that's the case. That's how it looks. I was like, oh, wow. That didn't occur to me. And I always thought, well, if there's new jobs created, it was probably all McDonald's or, something like that. But it looks like the huge majority of those jobs were really expensively paid or highly paid jobs for the government that just kept on expanding as they expanded their program of, what would you call it, socialists, et cetera. I actually did a comparison of liberal, progressive, conservative, and fascist goals. And it was very interesting. That, it was the time I spent doing that bit of research was very interesting. It's like, okay, when you are taking over a country and you want to move it from capitalist to socialist to communist to out and out fascist, you really need to keep expanding your power base, people that get in the system and I like your term, golden handcuffs, they can't get out.
Yeah.
And that's what was happening.
Oh, now that you say it, I can see that. Yeah,
Yeah,
because you've got all those people who now have all this debt because we live in a debt slavery system, that
that's
they've
right.
got to keep their mouth shut to keep that job. And
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think that whole system really it comprised the deep state. We often have thought of the deep state as people in CIA or the FBI, the hidden people, et cetera. But it was really that huge administrative state that didn't carry out any of the directives that we wanted. It was carrying out the directives coming from the controllers.
yeah,
Um,
which is why, we would vote and nothing ever changed because it
that's right.
wasn't supposed to change.
Yeah. I didn't think of the deep state as the administrative state, but now I do. It's like, oh, that's what the problem was. And of
Well, and it
course, the
could
more
even,
people added,
it
yeah,
anesthetized a large portion of the population
right.
to not
Yeah.
stand up, to not say this is a problem, or I don't want to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing, a lot of people that I know are still working just for the benefits, just the benefits. And I look at that and think, oh, wow, why don't you take responsibility for your own health? Get healthy. Stop eating crap, start exercising, take some supplements, get enough sleep, quit the stress, get out of debt, da, 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 da. And I think people are so hypnotized, they can't even imagine a different way of life.
Yeah, I think you're
So,
right.
yeah, yeah, it's like, okay, here we are.
I want to move into the administration that we're working with now. And I know that there's, you know, people who are pleased with how things are going, people that are not pleased with how things are going. But I do want to point out something that I saw that I thought was actually kind of a good move. And that was when the JFK files were released. And
Mm.
it was something like, 90,000 documents with a whole bunch of links that dug into another 70,000 documents. And there were complaints on social media. Oh, you're just going to dump all this on us and with no outline and no collated and no conclusion, this and that. And I said, yeah,
Oh,
because, now this is our responsibility
that's
to
right.
find out what happened. We're so used to being spoon-fed. We're the grown-ups here. We asked for the files. They provided the files. Now we can read the files and we can come to our own conclusion. That's the point of growing up as a country, as a nation, as a people, as a collective. That's the
Mm.
point. So
It is.
I actually liked the fact that they just did the dump. Like, here it is, go for it. Because the sense of
Mm.
deep information and understanding is going to be so much greater as a result of that.
That is for sure. If you let somebody else tell you what they read, you haven't learned a thing. Well, maybe you learned what's in the other person's head or what their perception's telling them. But I have to say, for me, the whole JFK thing was like, okay, I think I see what has happened. I'm pretty sure I know. I've watched, I've read. Plus, I was alive and well, and in high school when that happened. And there were a lot of stories. And I kept that research up pretty steadily until 2006 or 7, maybe 2005. And at that point, I had put all the pieces together. There have been a few refinements, but I'm going to wait and see now, what do the people who dig into those 80,000 pages conclude, and how does that compare to what I have seen, what I have felt, what intuition has fed me, and the way that when you put all the pieces together, there's some interesting pieces in there. It's like, I don't know that anybody would see those or write about those in those papers. Those are my particular ways of seeing. So I'm honoring my own seeing, and we'll hear eventually people who do dig through all that. I'm very grateful to them for doing that, but I already have a whole set of info.
When Trump said, and I think it was Trump said, you're not going to find anything earth shattering or this and that, I thought, oh, that's a dog whistle right there.
Yeah.
To go look for the earth shattering. It's like I just watch, I see a constant stream that's pretty low level, but it's like, take responsibility, take
Oh, yeah.
responsibility, take responsibility. How do you see the current administration working through the challenges with the takeover? Are you hopeful or?
I am very hopeful. I think we're going to make it. I think we're going to be able to reclaim our planet. I don't think we're going to give it up. And we are we're in a position now where the United States has been the sort of the de facto leader of a lot of stuff happening in the world. Where we go, the rest of the world goes.
Yeah.
And I think it is absolutely necessary that we, the people, get our shit together. So to excuse my French. Get our bricks in a pile and understand that where do we want the planet to go is where we're going to go. And if we abdicate, that's it. It's over. They
Yeah.
will return and try again. But they left because too many people were waking up. Now what we're left with is a bunch of criminals that they had trained to do the dirty work. And those criminals are having a heyday, or were having a heyday, until Trump came along and said, that's enough. We're not doing that anymore. People are really up in arms over what I think is absolutely mind-boggling. How dare you deport those criminals? How dare you deport those people that have been raping and murdering? It's like, okay, you want them in your neighborhood? You go ahead and invite them in. I
Yeah,
don't
put
think.
them up in your spare room. We'll bring them right on over.
Yeah, right. And I think one of the things that has impressed me about Trump, he must have some really good advisors, constitutional and military advisors, because he keeps coming up with legal means, precedents that he uses to justify what he's doing. And people have said, well, we're not in a state of war. Nobody's declared war. I'm like, look, there's the pretend reality, and then there's the real reality. In the real reality, there's a war going on, and you can stand there and declare all you want that we're not officially at war. But if somebody was coming in your yard to, get you and your dog and your wife or your kids or whatever, you would know immediately that this is a war.
Yeah.
And that is happening to some people. So why pretend that it's not?
I'm not sure if you saw Cliff with JC last night.
No, I started to, but my internet, Cliff would say something and then it would repeat 2 or 3 times. I was like, what is going on? So I thought I'll watch it later.
Yeah. I have a comment, and I kind of wanted to get your feelings about it, just because, we've all got an opinion right now.
Yeah.
Cliff is talking about, he thinks that the administration is really missing the point by not arresting a high profile person, deep state person, or, Epstein.
Anybody in particular, or just anybody?
Anybody, just anybody. He thinks that we're really missing the boat. The thing that comes to mind for me, Penny, and maybe I'm off base here, is I see the administration that's in office right now as cutting the legs off the power structure that was really subverting the planet. And they're doing this, with money, because nothing's gonna happen if they don't have money anymore.
Follow the money.
And and I feel like if they go too fast, or if they get too aggressive, not only are the naughty boys going to quadruple their efforts to take Trump out, they're going to quadruple their efforts to take us out.
Yeah.
They're going to rain down hellfire on the population, because the last thing they want is exposure or disclosure.
Yeah, I know.
And so it's one of those kind of things. It's like, if we ask for this to go a little faster, I'm afraid that we're going to be the ones that suffer. And they've been spraying the skies, and they've been putting crap in the food, and they have 12 ways from Sunday to make all of our lives miserable, including hurricanes in the middle of the country and fires and this and that. So have they not proved that they have used our money to create technology to take us out with? So I'm of the mind that, hey, maybe, Cliff, we don't need to push it too fast. I'm afraid we're going to lose a lot of people if that happened.
Um, I agree with you, and I have a slightly different point of view that agrees from a different angle, and that is that we have not earned that those arrests. Those are like the frosting on the cake, and we're still putting ingredients together. That would let people, if people, high profile people were arrested, people would say, oh, there, it's all taken care of. And it would not be, it wouldn't be taken care of at all. When you want justice, you have to earn justice. I forget who said there's no automatic justice in the world. It must be created. And that's really what I see as that's the reward of justice, of doing the work. I decided after avoiding for a long time, like a couple of years, that I was going to follow Trump's Telegram posts. Just going to read them as he put them out. And I'll get
Telegram or Truth Social?
Telegram.
Oh, I didn't know he was on Telegram.
Yeah,
okay.
he posts stuff all the time. And so I'll get 100 posts behind. And so then I go in and I read them all at once. And I think, oh, that's why he did. Oh, when you read those posts, I caught up the other day after I got back from Ottawa. And what I realized was that he was doing exactly what somebody trying to save a company or a family, business, or a nation would do, which is get in there, find out where the corruption is the thickest or the worst, fix that first. Because if you're up here playing with legal, grandstanders who thought they were going to escape, and you're not taking care of how do we solidify this. I think he's buying time. I do see that he's going to announce some kind of new financial system. I'm not sure when that is, sometime between now and the end of this year, October, the end of the fiscal year. He's already got that or trying to put that in place. But without that, and the man has to eat and sleep and go to the bathroom. He can't be online. I mean, he is online. He doesn't sleep much, but he can't be taking care of stuff that isn't critical. And so first we need some stability. And if you own a family business and somebody is stealing, taking money out of the bank in the family, you have to figure out who that is. And that's what's been happening for us. A lot of people have been getting a lot of money sent everywhere. When I heard that there were 14 financial computers that would just say, send that money, send this, pay this, pay that. I was like, I want one of those computers. Oh my God. Like, who? Oh my. That is absolutely outrageous. You cannot have any kind of order or country that runs smoothly with that kind of shenanigans going on. And so Trump is putting his attention where he needs to put it now. And we have not, there's still too much pushback against what he's doing. We have not come together as a people, and we therefore have not earned those high-level arrests.
Yeah, I see your point, and I think it's a good one. It makes me laugh. I would imagine that the press just wishes he would take a nap. Like, oh my God, he's at it again.
As long as it's not the dirt nap, we'll be okay.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it. I've heard that he's an enhanced version of a human.
Yeah. Yeah. I do know that he takes something. I don't know what all he takes. But
yeah, I want some of that. So you brought up, you were kind of led right into the next topic that I want to cover based on what we talked about before we came on. We're so divided, and it's vicious division.
Yeah.
vicious division, at least in America, and it might be this way around the globe. And I know that where we're going is a united planet. In other words, there may be cultures and regions and, groupings, but a planet that works in harmony.
Yeah.
How do you see us? I mean, I am stunned when I have friends, saying, "Oh, everything's Trump's fault." And I'm like, I don't see it that way. But then again, they think what I'm saying is crazy, and I think what they're saying is crazy. So as much pushback as I have towards their point of view, "Go Zelensky." I'm like, "Are you kidding? That guy's like as corrupt as they come." But
Yeah.
they see me as just as much of a lunatic. How do
Mm.
we and I realize, Penny, I realize this division is socially engineered. It's intentional. And there's almost no hotbed topic where division is not artificially sown. How do we get out of this?
You know, a couple times I've thought to myself, I don't think we're going to be able to come back together. But just recently, and I can't remember all the details of what I saw, but the feeling, the knowing all the way through me was we have a chance to pull it together as a planet. And yeah, we have a guy, in the US that's really polarizes a lot of people. But when you look at what is it the progressives want, what is it, the progressives are just the people who were liberals who didn't want to be known as liberals, so they gave themselves a new name. And they're really the same thing almost. Very few differences between liberal and progressive. And actually, I had a chart here that there was all the same things. Hang on a second. Let me see if there was any one difference that really stood out. They all wanted almost the same thing. Higher taxes. The bottom line for liberals, and here's what I think is wonderful about them, and what I think we need to pay attention to. They want a better world for everybody. They
Yeah.
want to take money away from the rich and give it to the poor. Of course, the people who've worked hard for that money are saying, "What are you thinking about?" No. And so, but they don't realize that that's a heart-centered approach to the people who are really suffering, really struggling. And I have, in the last year, given rooms in my building to 2 or 3 different people. We have somebody here who is homeless now, and just needed a place to pitch her tent. That's all. You can't go anywhere. You can't stand on a piece of ground if you don't own it for any length of time. You can't sit there. You can't pitch a tent there. You can't do anything. And my heart goes out to that kind of person. It's a rough way of living, and so I'll just say that that's what I think is the core of the liberal progressive heart-based approach. And then there's the other people, the conservatives. They're very, very traditional. Their basic thing is hard work, very moral, religious in the traditional religions in many ways. And this is my money. I earned it. They also are not people, a lot of the people that are in the homeless camp that are struggling. They are the victims of a system that has really screwed them over royally from the time they were born. We allow people to be born to abusive parents. Nobody has to get certified to be a parent. And so a lot of these people are hurt badly. They're hurt to the core by parents or grandparents or somebody that they have to put up with in their life. And that doesn't happen for the people that are, over here in the hardworking, morally, whatever, or they're better at covering it up, one or the other, or dealing with it. And so they don't really care that these guys don't have the mindset. These guys over here working hard, they want to work hard, but they can barely be present because
Yeah.
it's so painful. And then there's the fascists, they really take everything to an extreme. So let me just read my notes on fascism. They're authoritarian to the extreme. They want a state-controlled economy. They believe in strong central government and, again, more state control, and right down to the province, right down to the village. They only thrive under dictatorship. They love hierarchy and inequality. They work hard to create a class system because they want to use the lower classes. They say that all individual rights, there is no such thing. All rights belong to the state. There's no freedom of speech because that creates problems. They seriously discourage political parties that are other than their own. So there's no variety of politics. They are expansionist in their efforts to take over, and they're very aggressive toward other countries. They use force to control. They are racially unfair. They categorize people in that way, not just class, but race. No dissent is allowed, and the domination that they put forth is prevalent, but they do allow for a little tradition where it's useful. And that's fascism. And that's, to me, sounds terrible. So,
Yeah. I think that the majority of us have just outgrown that as even a concept that we would consider. And the reason I say that is that I see, what was it that happened recently? Oh yeah, when Trump took off, started picking on Thomas Massey.
Oh, I saw that. It's like, oh, I liked him.
I like him too. I would take, my position is that if our government had always been filled with people like Thomas Massey, we wouldn't be here now.
Exactly.
But one thing I can say is that there were ardent Trump supporters who stood up for Massey.
Yes.
So that to me showed a real maturity because they were able to say, I really appreciate him as my president, but I disagree. And I thought, good.
I did too. I had the same reaction. I thought, okay, Trump, you need to understand that you can't have 100% everything your way, the way you want. And I think Massey must have voted according to his conscience.
Yeah.
And he may think that a continuing resolution, which would allow us to keep going until September, was a total waste of time. Maybe he's not part of the group that's putting together the new financial system. And so Trump took him, went after him. Yeah. He needs to be primaried. I'm like, what is that?
So I want to talk about, and this is from a broader perspective, Penny, from, your Pleiadian perspective.
Okay.
And it's something that I think about a lot. As I look around the planet, and you brought up babies who are born to very abusive families, or babies that are born to drug addicts, or I see people, and this is a judgment on part, I acknowledge that, I see people who are grown-ass adults acting like a 13-year-old, just an immature victim, rant. And I'm wondering, because our population, in my opinion, is so damaged, we're so emotionally damaged, there's not a lot of really mature, healthy behavior happening. How does a planet, an entire collective on a planet, ever come back from that? Like, has it happened before? And I understand that
Yes.
we've been severely messed with. We've been severely messed with, and this level of dysfunction has been engineered in
Right.
and abuse in. Have you seen, or do you know of from your experience or your remembrances, have you seen of another collective that's been able to get healthy again?
Yes. It is possible. And some of them are even very advanced cultures, and something happens and they come apart. And the collective that's left puts it back together again, and it's a lot smaller population. And we may be headed toward that. I think people are maybe beginning to be aware that there's a population collapse happening on the planet at this time. And the when I was in medical school, one of the things that fascinated me was this research project called Pottinger's Cats. And it was, that, and then there was a nutritional study. I forget the name of the nutritional study, but those two things were for me very telling, in that the bottom line was that after 5 generations of being messed with, the people, or the animal in this case, could no longer reproduce. It's nature's way of guaranteeing that we're not going to continue this because these creatures aren't viable anymore. And I have said to people, don't worry, we can rebuild. It will take some time, but we can and will rebuild. My people and a few others who are able to see the future easily knew that this was coming, and that there was going to be a serious, we'll call it genetic modification effort of everything and everybody on planet Earth. And they started collecting DNA mostly against people's will, way back, 50 years ago, 60, 70 years ago. And they were collecting DNA from everything, plants, animals, every animal that exists, bugs, people, you name it. And so there's a seed bank, a DNA bank, that has been kept, and that will be used to reseed us if we should disintegrate into a few people that can't survive because because we've lost all of our supports for doing so.
I recently saw Bashar in Sedona. Are you familiar with Bashar?
Yeah, I've never watched anything that he's said or done, but I'm familiar with who he is, and I've heard a few things and thought, oh, he's right.
Yeah. He said, and I thought this was interesting, I'm just sharing the information that Bashar said, that there are a lot of hybrids going to be coming onto the planet.
That's true.
And they're going to be distributed through the adoption agencies.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, a lot of the young couples are not going to be able to have children, and they're going to be looking to adopt. And I thought, well, that's a pretty doggone brilliant plan.
Yeah, I know. In the West is where the population is collapsing. And so the white population is collapsing at a pretty intense rate. Elsewhere on the planet, people are reproducing like crazy, and they are not aware of some of the tactics, the techniques, should I say, that are used to tweak the DNA that they give birth to. And so that is also going on.
Oh, so in utero?
In utero, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is common for ETs to be able to extract a fetus, work on it, put it back, or to take it out and put a different one in and raise this one, the full-blooded human, in we'll say in a situation where they become very sensitive to other races of beings. And then when they come back here, They are proponents of being able to move out into the stars and have relationships with other people, which is, I think the people that I'm familiar with are trying to open as many pathways to relationship with others as they can possibly come up with. And so that's just a few of them.
That's the world I want to be a part of.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Save me one of those bodies so I can come back.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there's some things about bodies that we are very small in our thinking about, and we need to expand, and we don't have to hurry. We'll get there, but that expansion changes everything. So,
yeah. Is there anything else, Penny, that you'd like to cover from the look-see? Because I want to move on to the final topic next, and I just want to make sure that you felt like you touched on everything that was important.
I think that's, yeah. I think the only thing I would say to kind of close that piece out is the nation state is like a parent, like a mom and a dad to people. And when we mature, what happens then? Do we need a nation state? What do we need? How do we think about that? And so we are moving past the nation state. It's inch by inch, but the maturing process is going to bring us to a place where nobody wants the restrictions, and everyone has internalized ethics and values that are in alignment and cooperative, and still maintain their own uniqueness, and their own spirit and their own pizzazz and their own sass. So.
And I see that. I see it in little, people over here. I see a maturity and a sense of personal power.
Yeah.
That is so, I just love it.
I do too.
I just love seeing it. So attractive. So where I'd like to go next, and this is a personal topic that I proposed to Penny before we came on, but it's important to me right now. I think it's important to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I recently had a gal on my channel, Penny, who was the one that went viral in social media for confronting a chemtrail pilot.
Ooh, yeah.
And we talked, and she talked a little bit about her work and how she identified the pilot and, her thoughts on it.
Oh.
I had her on my channel. The next morning, I woke up to an email in my inbox from Renette Sinham.
Oh.
And I don't know if you know who Renette is. She's the two-time mayor of Nevada City, and she did a run for governor. Brilliant woman, stellar integrity, sharp, hardworking. I can't, it's like I want her to be my best friend,
Good. Okay.
And her point and position was, Kimberly, those lines that you see in the sky are not chemtrails, they're contrails.
Oh, no.
And she is doing a loss. I mean, she's started Save Our Skies. She invited me to this Zoom call with all these other people. Her point and position, and she does understand, or she does accept, that there is chemtrailing operations that are maybe clandestine, but her point and position, and it's well backed because she did have people on the Zoom call that substantiated what she's saying, that those stripes that we see in the sky that everybody's posting all over social media, that are not, those are not chemtrails. And so what I would like for you to do, if possible, tell us everything we need to know. It's like, I want to get to the bottom of this, because I've kind of backed away from it because I am not a science person. I don't know where to go with this. What's really going on?
I don't think anybody knows for sure. However, there is evidence. Now, if she says they're only contrails, some of them might be contrails, but they are not just contrails. And that the fact of the matter is that that is one of the tactics that the naughty boys that the people trying to take us down have used. Destruction of the air, destruction of the water, destruction of the soil, destruction of the food, destruction of the education system, destruction of the health in general, so that the mental, emotional, physical health is less. So when I was working with Dr. Levengood, we did some research. Somebody from California, from an area that was being sprayed heavily, sent us some stuff that he had scraped off of his car. He went to work, he parked his car in the parking lot. He came out and it was covered, all the cars. And it had been a heavy spraying day. And all the cars were covered with this gunk. So he scraped it into a small, like, vial and sent it to Levengood, and took some photos of it. And Levengood could not identify what that was. I have photos of it. It was, the way that the camera, the angle of light, whatever, it looked like this blue-green, hard, really hard jelly. I know jelly and hard do not go together, but
Yeah.
that's what it looked like. And there was a lot of talk, a lot of speculation about what it was, but it was some sort of compound that was not known, was not in our chemistry. So my immediate reaction at that point in time was, okay, so I know that there are beings here that are trying to take us out. They're trying to take over the planet. They have chemicals and they have ways of making things that we don't have a clue yet how to make those things. This struck me as something like that it was something where people were given this, that, and that in a bioweapons setting, and told, put this much of this and this much of that, and add a little bit of this, stir and spray. And when I have gone looking, there are bioweapons operations that are in operation across the world, but especially in the US. And that it's happening in Europe as well, a little bit in Africa. But the goal was to boost the destructive process, and it has done that. And you can say they're just contrails all you want, but that is just not true. That it strikes me as it's true. It's a little bit of truth, just leaving out the rest of the truth.
That's interesting. I know of a gal that just got back from Kilimanjaro doing that climbing thing.
Mhm.
And she said there are no stripes in the sky.
No, probably
Yeah.
not. They're just spraying along the northern edge of Africa, where most of the population that is kind of westernized is living.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So one of the people on this Zoom call that Renette invited me to said that the elevated aluminum in the soil is actually it's falling off the plains because of the friction up there, and it's coming off the aluminum frame of the plains, and that's what's creating the elevated aluminum in the soil.
That's kind of like saying, well, when I brush my hair, I lose a little hair. It's when the plane flies, it loses a little aluminum. If that were the case, they wouldn't be allowing those planes to fly. The thing would come apart and be full of holes after X number of flights. There's a lot of logic that people are using. And I know that people don't want to be coming down on the side of it's a chemtrail, only to be told, or for the truth to be found out later that, oh, it wasn't chemtrail at all. That was a contrail. But when I look at those chemtrails and I watch the spraying and I see what happens, and it's just, no,
You know,
There's
I
barium and strontium. That's not needing to be in a contrail. Aluminum, yes, and some other things, some biowarfare type things are being sprayed.
well, I was wondering if maybe the jet fuel had been that they had changed the formulation to actually put the chemicals in the jet fuel.
They might have tried that at some point, but if you've seen the pictures of the inside of those big sprayer jets, the vats, there's no seats in the body of the plane. They're all chemical vats. You know, I'm like, okay, what are you hauling there, my friend? And the diagrams that I've seen that go right out to the sprayers on the wings, you know, I'm sure that Renette is trying to keep people from being worried about what's happening, because it is worrisome. But
Mhm.
the fact of the matter is that trees don't lie, plants don't lie, soil doesn't lie, animals don't lie, people don't lie. Well, people do lie. I mean, they may make a bad assumption about something, but thousands and thousands of people end up with all kinds of sinus congestion and ear, nose, and throat stuff, and even, you know, lung congestion because of that spraying. And when we just last week, I think it was before I went to Ottawa, woke up one morning. It was an absolutely crystal clear blue day, like the sky was a blue jewel. And I thought, oh my God, we haven't seen this in such a long time. Always it's this milky white stuff that they start spraying, and by 4 in the afternoon, it's a mess. And sure enough, you know, by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I see the planes zigzagging back and forth spraying. And by 6 o'clock, the sky was milky white. It's like, okay, why? What are they doing? Oh, they say it's for communication purposes. I don't think it's for communication. And in the research that's been done on the actual residue of those where they have been able to identify, I don't know that barium and strontium and all those things make for better communication at all.
Going back to that book that I referenced earlier, and I promise I will put it in the comments section because I'm so
Okay.
sorry I don't remember the name. He talked about Michael Aquino, who
Ooh,
was, I believe, a general in the Air Force and a self-proclaimed Satanist.
yeah.
And he said that the word on the street, or the word within the whole Satanist community, was that Aquino had blackmailed the Air Force, and that is why there's military planes spraying us.
I don't know. I haven't heard that, so I really can't comment. But I would have to say, how would you blackmail an entire military arm? That doesn't kind of make sense. It just seems like that would be very unusual for something like that.
Well, there are military planes spraying us.
Yeah, there are. They are military. And
So,
I have wondered, I hate to interrupt, but I a couple of times have thought, I don't think that's really military. I think that's deep state, or the bad boys that have painted and marked the planes to make people think it's the military.
well, then that's a complete possibility.
Yeah, there's been too much lying about everything. And when you look at the capabilities that the takeover gang has been able to pull off, the money that they have, the technology that they have, that's got to be a no-brainer, a piece of cake. It's the same thing as a false flag. You know, it's their fault. And it's not. It's you doing it and trying to shift the blame to somebody else so that you have a reason to, take them down, or just a reason to deflect blame.
And then I really notice the psychological implications of an operation like this. And here's what happened to me. I went on that Zoom call with Renette and those people. Smart. I have nothing but, I was like convinced. It's like, oh my gosh, they talked about air temperature and moisture. And when it's in 5%, you're going to get the trails. And they would tell Renette, there's going to be trails tomorrow, but not the next day. And I listened to all that, I thought, well, that makes perfect sense. And yet I walk out and I look at the sky and I say, that's not normal.
That's
And
right.
and then what starts happening is like, I'm thinking, it's crazy making. Because what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, it's like the emperor's new clothes. Oh, look at his outfit. It's so great. Well, wait a minute. He's naked. I felt like that. It's like, okay, if there's a scientific explanation of why this is a contrail, why am I seeing that? And that does not look normal. So it's a crazy making experience.
Mhm. Yeah, it is. And I know that people don't want to believe that anybody would do that. But that's part of our gullibility problem. People are willing to do that, unfortunately. And they are doing it. And you can walk outside and watch it. So that's, it's really, it's sad. It's frustrating. It's like, oh, okay.
Well, okay, so why has the current administration not addressed it? I cannot find anyone outside of a local level politician who will even hardly say the word chemtrail or address it. My
Yeah.
thought is that they are not talking about it because they can't stop it at this time.
Well, that's the same thing as with, well, we don't want to say that there's ETs because we don't have any technology that will allow us to take over those ETs. And ETs, of course, are not going to be taken over. And so it's the same kind of dynamic. But I see that there's somebody who says, hey, we need an investigation into this. But that the focus right now is so heavily on stop the financial bleeding and stop the focus that there's only so much time. But that chemtrail investigation is coming. I just heard that Florida has outlawed chemtrails in their skies. And I thought, oh, good luck with that.
Well, so has Tennessee. But what I hear is that a state only owns the air up so far.
Right.
And then the
Right.
federal government owns up above that. So they can spray up above that. So it's like these laws are almost meaningless.
Well, they have to spray at a certain height in order to get it to land. Otherwise, it's going to blow out and go somewhere else. And so that would be the strategy I would think they would use. They would just go over to Texas when the wind is blowing from the northwest and hope that it all lands in Florida, depending on the, maybe without NOAA having the funding, they won't be able to negotiate that quite as well. But
I'm telling you, in Florida, we are getting hammered.
Oh, are you still?
Oh, it's just everyone is,
Oh,
and most of the people are not even connecting it. It's like, why is everybody so sick? Well, I don't know. Have you looked up lately?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We're getting it from every direction.
It's
And
amazing we're still kicking.
I know. That's why we're so popular with other people around the galaxy. It's like, man, those humans on Earth, they are the Energizer bunnies of the universe. They just keep going.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have a lot to learn. And I think we can only handle so much stress at one time, so much information. I think there's going to be some overload. When you mess with people's money and people know instinctively that they need that money to survive and to be able to tolerate the worldly conditions of the location they're in, and they're not set up for that, that's a terrible, terrible threat. And so people they want the money fixed first So I think that's what Trump is doing. And he happens to be a money guy. He's
Yeah.
all about money.
He's good at the whole money thing. That's for darn sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's something that I think is coming, but we still have a couple years of some pretty heavy duty shocks and work and
Oh no, a couple months. Tell me a couple months.
okay, a couple months.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay.
oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
Shit.
I know. I know. It's getting better a little at a time for some people. So just make it better for yourself. That's
Yeah.
really
Come
when I tell
together.
people take care of yourself first. That's what I'm saying. Make
Yeah.
it better for you.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of look around and say, okay, what needs to happen here?
Yeah.
And then maybe, maybe we can have a world that is really sweet a few years from now. So
And this is such a beautiful planet. It is.
it is.
I can't even wait for
Yeah,
it to be in its full glory.
I know. Oh my.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you drive across it, like I was driving across Canada last week or the week before last, it was just like, wow, just a wow over and over again. And it was interesting going across Highway 401, the entire coastline of the northern shore of Lake Erie, I think it is, was urban. Everything to the right was tall buildings, urban streets, etc. Everything to the left was wilderness. It was like, wow, everybody is crammed right along the shore of the lake. And they're just missing all this beauty out here. So it was very interesting, an interesting perspective.
Whoever put this place together, good job.
Yeah, very
Good
good.
job.
I know.
It was a big project, but good. I look at that and think, that's a good job, whoever did that.
Yeah, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And I think it's the intelligence of what I'm going to call the source material. It communicates. It is, I tell people, set up a relationship with source. If you don't reach out, you're going to miss something that is absolutely phenomenal. It responds.
Yeah.
And it wants relationships with us. And what do we do? Da 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 da, over and over and over.
Boy, manifesting right now is so quick.
Yeah, isn't it?
It's lickety split. I just crack myself up sometimes. It's like,
I
wow,
do
too.
I know. Who was I telling the other day? I was typing something and the whole room came alive, just started crackling and popping and snapping. It was like, oh wow, So I stopped to listen, and it stopped. And what I was typing was very controversial and very powerful. And I start typing again. It started up again. I thought, oh wow, the whole environment around me was responding to the energy that I was feeling and typing at the same time. And I stopped and started 3 or 4 times. And every time it stopped and started right with me. It's like, oh,
it's so cool.
So cool. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Penny, this has been such a good conversation. Thank you so much for your time and your continued efforts, and you sticking with us here on this planet, even though it's been such a long slug for you.
Yeah, I know, but it's interesting. It's very interesting how things are unfolding. And when I saw just last week that there was this crack in the in the worlds of possibilities. And, and I've said, I think we're moving on to another timeline because we are creating that timeline.
Yeah.
Seeing that this is a real chance to recover our planet, reclaim the whole thing, and reclaim life as we would like to live it. It's like, okay, yeah, let's go.
Worth every penny.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So thank you, for the conversation. Good questions.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had more, in-depth information about some of the things, but we have to hold the space for that information to come in and keep holding it. And by the time it comes, we're like, oh yeah, I knew that. So it's a big deal. But
it's a fun unfolding. It's never a dull moment here on planet Earth right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And thank you everyone for joining us and stopping in. We'll be back next month.
Yep, we will. Yeah. Take care of yourself. It promises to be an interesting month. So I will see you next month. And Kimberly, you take good care of yourself. Okay.
You too. Bye, everyone. Thanks so much.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. Whoops.
If we can figure out how to get out of here.
Hang on. There we go. Okay.